Honestly, I wanted to make this video for a while now. And this is just a story of why I quit and dropped out of architecture school and just how it turned out, right? Now, I just want to start off by saying that this is not to encourage anyone to take any major decision on quitting or staying or like committing fully to architecture. This is just my personal experience, and if you can get any takeaways from it, then feel free to do so. I was born in an architecture household. My father is an architect, and ever since I was born, everything around me was about architecture. It wasn't hard for me to decide on what I wanted to do. It always seemed cool. And I remember even since a kid when I saw around my father's studio, everyone, just designing buildings and using cool software. The software was too hard for me as an 8 or 9 year old, but Minecraft was always as an alternate to that for me. And I remember playing Minecraft and using that as a way to, I guess, replace any other architectural software that is. And after that, I never had the chance to study architecture formally in any way while I was at school, or at least in my high school program, until I went to an exchange year in the USA in Texas, where I had an architecture class that I could take weekly, which was very, very cool, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it kind of was more so directed to learning how to draft and all of that, since it was in high school anyway. But honestly, that was really cool, and that kind of, I guess, persuaded me into definitely going with architecture. So some time passes by, and after 2 years or so, I go to university, and you started off all right. I had a whole different mentality back then and what I do now. And just as time went by, I realized that learning architecture and being a good architect isn't going to be good enough in order to fulfill the goals and where I wanted to be. So after some time, I started doing some research on what I could do as an architecture student in order to maybe support myself financially. Now, obviously, there were other options that were in no shape or form correlated with architecture, but I kept all of those as a secondary option. And for the first option, I just tried to filter out something which was somehow connected with architecture that will also help me to become a better architect and help me to get my university work done a lot faster. So I already knew a bit of drafting with AutoCAD. I saw that drafting just doesn't pay enough, right? That was one of the things. So the second service that I could offer as an architecture student when I did some research was 3D rendering. And honestly, I remember the first time that I heard about what a render is, I probably was 12 or 13, and it sounded so cool that you could create something that didn't exist and kind of just create it virtually and it would look real, right? That whole concept was really, really interesting to me. So as time went by, the pandemic happened. So this is just around the pandemic. I was in my first year of architecture school. Yeah, I was in my first year of architecture school, and this was exactly when I started to learn rendering. Now, there was a project in my father's office that came along. It was like a small home, and my father needed some renders, and I decided to pick it up and try to do something, even though I never even had any experience doing renders. Now, I go online and try to find what kind of rendering software there's out there, and I saw the Lumion was one of the most popular ones out there, but honestly, the computer that I had back then just couldn't handle it. And at the same time, I was going to architecture school, by the way. So this was just happening, everything simultaneously. Then I went on to search which software needs the least amount of computing power in order to create renders. And then at the same time, Enscape had a 14-day free trial for it. So I just downloaded it. It was free, and I didn't need to upgrade my computer in order to use it. This is how this whole learning skill of rendering kind of gets me to quitting architecture, which you might be wondering right now. Well, after learning Enscape and just creating some renders with it, I managed to get some connections and find work online in order to be a freelancer. And from the get-go, honestly, it was a very, very good way for me to support myself financially at the time. And I immediately saw a lot of business opportunity with it. And the crazy thing is that I never saw myself before as someone who would, I guess, own his own agency or be an entrepreneur or anything like that. But the first moment that I got my first job, my first gig at the time for rendering, it just became my priority, right? So architecture and learning architecture and my passion for architecture and buildings and designing just kind of was overshadowed by my passion of creating a business and becoming an entrepreneur through the skill of rendering, which at the time was just as a tool for me to do and live the life that I wanted to live. So after some time, I saw that in 6 to 8 months, I saw that rendering was becoming a very sustainable source of income for me, and I was able to live a lot better while directing my focus onto this side of my career rather than just doing architecture, right? So following the architecture route. At the same time, I kind of lost my passion for designing buildings and all of that. I mean, it just got overshadowed by my enjoyment in the process of building an agency. And after those 6 to 8 months, then, it was the second year of architecture school. By the way, I've still finished all of my lectures. Like architecture school is 3 years here where I live in Kosovo. I still finished all of my lectures. However, I just didn't finish all of the exams because I just couldn't bother with it, right? Just to get to down in the message of this, or like the reason why I quit, basically, it just made a lot more sense for me financially in order to pursue what I'm doing right now, even with YouTube, even with rendering, being able to have a dedicated online platform where I can help other people learn rendering and also kind of find their way into the rendering business through the skill that they learn, and also have the rendering agency where I could create renders for other people as well. If you get down to it, the main reason probably was because my passion for entrepreneurship overshadowed my passion for architecture, but at the same time, after 3 years, my goals and the way that I wanted to live life in no way correlated with the typical life of an architect, or honestly just any architect, to be honest, right? Because I came to understand the real power, and I came to understand the real importance of being able to be financially free, have location freedom, and also at the same time have time freedom. And while you may argue that architecture can get you financial freedom if you're super ultra successful as a top 1%, I doubt that it can ever get you location freedom or time freedom, right? So just through me getting more onto rendering as a business, agency as a business, on the educational side of business as well, it led me to understand that honestly, from what I've seen and from what I've been surrounding and to the amount of people that I've talked to online with architects, architecture is just an awful business, right? Like anyone who does architecture, I think most people just do it for the passion or kind of being stuck with it. But I don't think anyone would just wake up and choose architecture as a business opportunity because it's just not there. And if you're passionate about it, definitely go for it. And I understand why you would go for it. If I still would love architecture as much as I love entrepreneurship nowadays and education and 3D rendering, I would still be doing it. But honestly, I just do not see it as an opportunity or as a vehicle that would allow me to live my the way that I want to live life, right? Now, this is just kind of the short version. This is why I decided to quit architecture and not even finish university and all of the exams, and instead continue with rendering. I'm still somehow working in the with the architecture industry because most of my clients are architects anyway. The 3D rendering clients, as well as you guys that watch my 3D rendering tutorials. If there is one thing which I would like every single one of you from the bottom of my heart to take away from this video, is that try to imagine your dream life through every single detail and choose the path that you want to follow as a vehicle to get there and nothing more. Thank you very much for watching this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you're an architecture student contemplating if you should quit right now, or even if you have already graduated from architecture and you regret it right now. Thank you very much once again, and I will see you on to the next one.